What is up, everybody? It's Revv time. Today I want to talk about heavy tones, and I notoriously tend to lean towards lower, medium to low gain tones, and I don't listen to a lot of heavy music. But when I thought about, the type of players that influenced me or have influenced me with, that are heavier players. The first band that came to mind was Big Wreck, for sure. And then, of course, Thornley is an absolute alien. He's just one of my favorite guitar players. And he tends to use like really, really big kind of saturated tones, and it sounds so good. So notoriously I don't listen to a lot of heavy music, but at the same time, I guess I do because I listen to a lot of Big Wreck. And when I think about the records, I mean all of them, but maybe a 7.1 and 7.2, probably Albatross, Ghosts, But for the Sun. But there's always like these great big saturated rhythm tones for these insane riffs that Ian writes. And I would say that's been an influence on me. So I wanted to cut just like a quick kind of riff thing to just give you guys an idea of what I would do when it's heavier tones, because I'm not really, like a dark metal player or even a metal player, but I do on occasion really dig kind of higher gain tones. And even in that riff, like I've got this guitar drop C. And I actually stole that from Ian. I stole it from a song called You Caught My Eye. But that whole... that whole thing, even though it doesn't sound anything like You Caught My Eye, that's what the inspiration came from. You Caught My Eye is, I'm probably going to play it wrong, but it's this kind of thing. It's a killer song. What a great song. But anyways, that's where I lifted it from. And really that's where the whole kind of riff came from. So how did I arrive at that tone? Well, first of all, I am using my my Generator 120 Mark III. I'm using channel 2, and I'll put up a still shot, but basically across the board, gain, treble, mid, and bass are at noon. I'm using the blue aggression mode, and I do have the bright and cut switches employed for this tone. I'm also running my tilt down here into the front end of it, just using the boost side of the tilt to just kind of tailor things in. So if I were to start without it, we've got this thing. I'm basically adding top end and cutting lows. So that's how I'm arriving at that rhythm tone. And I am boosting a little bit, but not much. I'm really just using the tilt to shape the tone, but not necessarily add more saturation. So on both sides of that mix, I didn't change a thing. I just switched guitars. That Sir Alt T has thornbuckers in it, which are a little bit brighter, or actually quite a bit brighter than the pickups in this guitar, which are more kind of a classic Gibson PAF output and tonality. So that worked out perfectly. I didn't have to touch anything. And then for the solo sound, I basically just turned on one more thing. So I left the tilt on, and what I added to it was this Octaland fuzz box. Now I'm not using it as an octave. I've got that turned off, and I've got very little actual like fuzz added to the signal. It's just a tiny bit. But what it does, and it is subtle, but it adds a feel and a saturation. So here's without it. That sounds cool, but I wanted it kind of fatter and more saturated. Like that sounds cool, but I want more saturation than that. And it actually makes the note kind of spread out a little bit. It's a little bit fatter. And I thought that sounded great. That's one of my tricks. It's not a trick, whatever. It's something I do. I like fuzz pedals basically as used as like push boxes or boost pedals into either amps that are already overdriven or saturated like this one, or even like my tilt. I love using that thing into the front end of my tilt into the drive channel. It does the same thing. It just kind of adds this saturation and fatness to the tone, and it sounds really cool. I ended up using delays in the old television set instead of off my pedal board because I didn't want to overdo it with how much delay I put on that solo sound. On the rhythm tones, there really isn't any delays, but on that solo sound, there is kind of a 300 millisecond delay. It's kind of the typical thing I do. But yeah, that's how I arrived at those sounds. Let me know in the comments, are you guys, into like, I think you are obviously, but as far as like heavy tones go, like who are your big influences? Who are your favorite players? What are your favorite bands? And how do you get at those tones? Do you just do it all from like a channel amp? Does channel gain, or do you do it all from pedals or a combination of the two? I'd love to hear what you guys are up to when it comes to things like that. And as always, I really appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next time.